Okay, please forgive me. My son is over there playing with his car. He might come up and yell at me, so I might have to pause it. But here, we're going to graph and translate, or transform, so translate sine and cosine functions. So the general method here is to flip it, and we flip it if there's a negative in front. And then we're going to sketch it, and we're just going to sketch general shapes here. So the general shape of sine is that, and the general shape of cosine is that. Those are general shapes. Then we're going to label it, and the labeling, it's the hard part. That's where we have to know the amplitude, the frequency, and the period. And the period is 2 pi over b. And that comes from the unit circle, right? If I start over here at 0 degrees, looking at the sine graph, it goes 0, 1, 0, negative 1, back to 0. So I have these 5 critical values that are evenly spaced. And same with cosine. If I did cosine, it would be 1, 0, negative 1, 0, back to 1. Again, evenly spaced. Give me 1 second, I'm going to pause and see what he needs. Okay, I'm back. His car was stuck under the table. Had to get it. So, again, regular intervals. And so this 2 pi over b, that tells me the period, and that's because the unit circle, the distance around the circle, is 2 pi. And so the frequency tells me how many times a cycle is going to happen between 0 and 2 pi. And so we'll get to that. And then lastly, we sketch. And that's where the translations are going to come in. Basically, a times whatever trig function it is times your b value, x minus h plus k. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about this. The a is the amplitude, which we already know. B is frequency, how many times it happens between 0 and 2 pi. H, you guys should already know, moves the graph left and right, and it's always opposite. K value moves the graph up and down, and it's not opposite. And so we're just going to go ahead and dive right in. 1 second. Little dude's freaking out about something. So anyways, let's look at y equals negative 2 sine of, I don't know, 1/2 x minus pi plus 1. So what we need to do is we're going to focus first on this negative 2 sine of 1/2 x, because that's something we can easily graph just by doing our flip it, sketch it, label it. And so here we go. It's negative, so I have to flip it. It's a sine graph. Now I need to label it. My amplitude is 2. Because my a value is 2. And my b value is 1/2. And so to find my period, I take 2 pi divided by 1/2. Well, that equals 4 pi. If you're having a hard time with dealing with fractions, you can do 2 divided by 1/2 in your calculator. That gives you 4. And multiply by pi. So that means this value here has to be 4 pi. And because I have regular intervals, I always divide that period by 4. Because that'll give me all 4 of these notches. So 4 pi divided by 4, that has to be pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi. So I have a regularly spaced interval of pi each unit, and that tells me that because I complete half of a sine cycle between 0 and 2 pi. Well, here's 0, here's 2 pi, and if you notice, I only complete half of my sine function. Interesting, right? So now we have to do the shifted part, right? And so I'm going to move to the right pi, and I'm going to move up 1. So I got to take all of these points, this point, and move it to the right pi and up 1. It's now going to be right there. Then I have to take this point down here, move it to the right pi, and up 1. So it'll be right there. 1, negative 1. Then I have to take this point, move it to the right pi, and up 1. So it'll be right there. And then I have to take this point up here and move it to the right pi, and up 1. And so now I just connect the dots. Where am I at here? Oh, I got to do the last one. To the right 1, which would put me at 5 pi, and up 1. There we go. So connect the dots. That green curve there is the function y equals -2 sine of 1/2 x minus pi plus 1. It's just my sine function flipped with an amplitude of 2, with a frequency of 1/2, moved to the right pi, and shifted up 1. Pretty crazy. Let's do another example. Y equals... Let's see, we'll do a cosine, we'll leave the amplitude at 1, of 2 x plus pi over 2 minus 1. Again, we're going to first focus on this function here, y equals cosine of 2x. Because all we do there is flip it if necessary, sketch it, and label it. Doesn't need flipped, so here's the cosine function. Let me spread it out a little bit more. There we go. And so I sketched it, now I just need to label it. My amplitude in this case is 1. And because there's no a value, so it's an implied 1. And then my b value is 2, meaning my period is 2 pi over 2, which is just pi. So this right here has to be pi. And if I divide that by 4, that means every critical value is going to be pi over 4. 2 pi over 4 simplifies to pi over 2. 3 pi over 4. So everybody should be able to get to that point. Now what we have to do is shift this graph to the left pi over 2 and down 1. So I'm going to take every point. So here my point is at 0. So if I go left pi over 2, that gets me to right here at negative pi over 2. And I'm going to go down 1. So that puts me down here at 0. Now we go to this, and there's a couple ways to do this. If you have a common scale, so like I see that my scale is a 4th, so I kind of kept that same scale. If you do that, it's nice because now I can see I moved this one over 2 notches. That means every point is going to move over 2 notches. So if you can develop a good scale, this will make it easier on yourself. If not, you can do math. So if I have pi over 4, and I need to go to the left pi over 2 spaces, to make them have a common denominator, that'd be 2 pi over 4. Pi minus 2 pi is negative pi over 4. So this one's going to move to here. Look at that, 2 notches. And it's going to move down 1. So right there. And so hopefully you believe me now. I'm going to show the math just one more time. This notch down here is at pi over 2. Pi over 2 minus pi over 2 is 0. So this one should go to 0. Look at that, it goes to 0, which is 2 notches, and I'm going to go down 1, which is at negative 2. So hopefully now you believe me that because I've developed a good scale, I'm just going to move everything over 2 notches. So this one's going to move over 2 notches and then down 1 to right there. And then this point goes over 2 notches, down 1 to right there. And so now I connect this. So now I have a really beautiful cosine curve. That is really just my normal cosine curve compressed down to where it happens twice between 2 pi. Because look, I could continue. And it would end at 2 pi. And that means it happened twice within 2 pi. So I could totally do that. But really all I want you to see is this, that if you can get to this, I will be a happy person. Now you can continue going on, but I guess my big hints are develop a good scale, because then you can just count notches, and memorize these formulas. That's it, and always remember, flip it, sketch it, label it, and this should be move it. I don't know why I wrote sketch it again. Shift it. Good grief, Charlie Brown. That's it. Have a good day.